You're listening to Rebel Spirituality with me, Sam Goldfinch. Here's the truth. Wisdom doesn't follow rules. So each week we're going to explore what it means to wake up your way so you can live a more peaceful, creative and inspired life no matter your circumstances. It's time to blaze your unique path to truth.
It's a bit like setting sail in an unsinkable boat. And, you know you're going to hit bad weather and it's going to be frightening. But if you know your boat's unsinkable, then that gives you that sort of reassurance in life, which is, I feel, is very much what I'm exploring, is that reassurance at the level of spirit. Well, that's who we are.
Hey friends, so you just heard a snippet from the conversation that I have today on the podcast with my friend Liz. And we're going to explore a recent pilgrimage that she went on, both, what that means metaphorically and also the pilgrimage that she experienced. And it won't be what you're expecting. So, it's a really beautiful conversation. And she's just asked me to add one quick correction. She mentions on the podcast that the walk, the pilgrimage, finished at St Mary's-on-Sea, but it was actually Hopton-on-Sea in the UK, just in case anybody looks into this or, researches it or anything. St Mary's was the name of the church, but it actually ended at Hopton-on-Sea. I really enjoyed this conversation. There was such a connection to it and such a wonderful feeling. So I really hope you get as much from it as I did. Oh, team, this is really exciting. Me and my guest today, so I've got Liz Scott on, who is a new friend of mine. We met actually in a field, but 4 weeks ago? How many weeks ago was it?
Yeah, it was probably about 4 weeks ago. Exactly that, yeah.
And I knew we were going to be great mates because within about 10 minutes of us meeting, I'd been invited for a good cup of coffee, in your van the following morning with you and your partner, Stu. And I'm always up for a good cup of coffee. So, yeah.
No, it was great. It was great to meet you. And it was just great to hang out and to be around like-minded people who really have well-being right at the centre and heart of everything they're about. So, yeah, it's nice to have you as a new friend, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it will be a lasting friendship. I have no doubt. And, it was really cool. So we were both talking at this festival our friend Amy Rogers had put on. And you did an amazing talk with Stu about well-being listening, which was fantastic. I really got a huge amount from it. And I think you both have just a wonderful skill in keeping things simple, but with a real richness and a real depth to them. And I was really touched by that. So, I just knew that I wanted to have you on the podcast for a conversation. And you've got loads of cool stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about a pilgrimage and some really cool stuff that you saw during that time. But before we dive into that, Liz, is there anything else you'd love everybody listening to know about what inspires you, kind of what you're up to in the world? Over to you, basically.
Yeah, well, I suppose one of the things that really is centre of everything I engage with is the inside out understanding. And I know you talk about that on your podcast, but it's basically really pointing people back to that inner wisdom and intuition that we all have. And so in more recent years, I've been involved in community work, and you talked about well-being listening. And I and my husband were very much involved in our local community. We live in a place called Ivy Bridge. It's got about 12,000 people. It's pretty much a commuter town, I would say. It's a town that's got lots of utilitarian kind of things in it, like the doctors and estate agents and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's got a really lovely heart to it. And we were sharing what we call well-being listening. And this, in essence, is what our work is all about, which is helping people just realize that at the heart and core of who they are deeply okay. And because they're human and they're having a human experience like the rest of us, they get lost in thought and thinking and can feel that they're not okay. Yeah. And so well-being listening is about listening out for that wisdom and resilience and intuition in yourself, and then listening out for that in the other person and connecting at that level. I call it that level of soul, connecting at that level with each other. So we've done a lot of that in recent years. We've also engaged in coaching. We've worked in education. And you've caught me at a time in my life where it's a bit of a hiatus. I've spent probably 2 years having a bit of an inward journey. And we'll talk about the pilgrimage in a minute. That was part of it. But also, I feel now as though the inward journey is now turning to an outward journey. And I'm really curious about what that means. And I'm hoping that part of this conversation will help that formulation. It's almost like the creative energy is crystallizing and taking shape. And I can't quite work out what that shape is yet. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what that might be. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. And you know what? It's one of the gifts of conversation. I feel like sometimes we get stuck in this idea that we need to know what we're going to say or prepare for stuff, but the alchemy of being in a connected conversation and just seeing what kind of emerges from that is, well, it's one of the greatest pleasures of my life, and I think, you know, we're both aligned in that. So I can't wait to see what gets created in the middle of this chat. That's going to be it's going to be great. So there'll be a bit more time to talk about specifics or anything you want to share later. And I'll be sure anyone listening, if you want to know anything about what Liz is up to in the world, there'll be show notes and links and all that stuff. But let's dive into this inner journey. You mentioned a pilgrimage, and I've got all sorts of questions, you know, like, what do you mean by that? Where did you go? Where did that come from? You know, is this something you've done before? There's like a million things I could ask. So I'll let you pick where to start. And then I'll I don't know, rudely interrupt if there's something I'm burning to ask and just can't let it slip by or something like that.
Okay. Well, I guess for me, a pilgrimage is a personal and spiritual journey. So it used to be that pilgrimages in medieval times were commonplace, particularly in the UK and Europe. People would go on pilgrimage. And so I mean, I guess I'm kind of thinking, where shall I start with this? And I guess I'm going to take you back to the day before the winter solstice. This was 2 years ago now. And my sister and I decided that we wanted to go and walk to Stonehenge at daybreak. So we went up to Stonehenge area and we got there the day before. And the day before we thought we're going to go to Avebury. And Avebury is in Wiltshire. It's probably, I don't know, that's less than maybe 30 miles away, something like that. Avebury is lesser known, but it's got this extraordinarily huge stone circle, so big, it's got like roads going through the middle of it. It's an incredible thing. And we went to Avebury and we went for a walk. And on this walk, there were two things that happened. One is that we got to a place called the Sanctuary, and the Sanctuary would have been a stone circle. All the stones have gone now, but there are little concrete markers to show where these stones were. My sister got to this place at the Sanctuary, and I could see that she was in the middle of this stone circle and something was going on for her. And I was like, what was going on? She came out and she said, did you feel the energy? And I was like, no, I didn't, perhaps, you know. I mean, it felt lovely, but she obviously felt something. And we carried on our walk and we continued onwards. And I came to a place called, or we both came to a place called West Kennet Longbarrow. And I went inside and then boom, I had this experience, which I couldn't explain. Like, I can't explain logically. I just felt profoundly peaceful and like I was on holy ground. That's the best way I can put it. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of like a curious experience. And then the next day we walked to Stonehenge and that was beautiful as well. And I didn't think much of it. And I started to hear something about the Michael and Mary energy lines. Now, you've probably heard of ley lines, and energy lines or energy currents are a little bit like ley lines. And I became curious about it. So curious, I kind of felt the nudge in me that I bought a book. And the book was called The Sun and the Serpent. And it was about a dowser who back in the 1980s actually dowsed these energy currents. And as I was reading this book, I nearly sort of spurted out my tea, because when he got to Avebury, the place of the Sanctuary is a place where the two energy currents cross. And that's when my sister had this really profound experience. And the Mary energy current goes right through West Kennet Longbarrow. And that's where I had this experience. And I was like, wow, this is curious. And I just did a bit more looking around and exploring. And I just felt this. All I can say, it was something within me that was drawing me to walk this route. And it's not a recognized pilgrimage route. Somebody has drawn up sort of a guidebook from where it starts, and I'll tell you all about that in a sec.
Yeah, cool.
Avebury. But from Avebury onwards, it's not a recognised pilgrimage route. And there was so many, it was so daft, all of this. I was like, why am I drawn to do this? At the time, I was helping care for my dad. We had an elderly dog. It's like, I'm not going to earn any money. I'm going to have to use my savings. How am I going to do it? It's going to cost a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money at the moment. There was nothing logical that had me walk this route or want to walk it. But I just felt compelled that it was for me to do. So the route itself starts near Land's End in Cornwall. So if you imagine you're looking at a map of the UK, it's like the little foot on the left-hand side.
As far out as you can go.
Far out as you can go. And it finishes in Norfolk.
Wow.
Like a diagonal. If you were to draw a line across diagonally the country, it's like the bit on the right-hand side that sort of bulges out in East Anglia. And the ley line, which is a straight line, so there's the ley line, which is called the Michael line, quite a famous ley line apparently, that stretches from Cornwall all the way up to Norfolk. And the energy currents, the Michael and Mary energy currents, they sort of weave their way and they keep crossing over each other from Cornwall all the way up to a place called Hopton St Mary, I think it is, from near Land's End all the way up to Norfolk. And so I wasn't able to walk the whole lines because they go on roads and private property. But what happens is that they pass through different sites. So they pass through stone circles, they pass through churches. A lot of churches have been built on these energy currents. And many of the churches built on these energy currents, hence the name of they're given the name, are dedicated either to St Michael or St Mary, hence the name, the Mary and the Michael currents. And so these currents weave all the way across the country. And I got a map and decided I was going to walk it. And my husband came with the camper van, so he was in support, and it was really good to have support. And I just walked for 48 days, day after day, until I'd covered over 630 miles and got to the end of the route. So that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, it's amazing. And you ended up in one of my favorite places on earth, Norfolk. And it's funny because I remember at university, back when I kind of was stumbling into anything and all these new interesting things. And I remember somebody saying that there was a ley line that went through the middle of Norwich, actually. And just it may be that line. But understanding a bit more about that, which is, I don't have anything like the knowledge you do, Liz, but how amazing is that? And how cool to just know that you had to do something and something that defies logic. I think you probably know by now, something I often share is that wisdom doesn't follow rules. And it's like, all the rules are like, okay, no, I know what I have to do. For some reason, I've got to do this walk. And like, did you know how long it was going to take? Was it just like, did you have a plan of action in that sense? Or were you just walking to as much as you liked each day and then kind of just taking that time and seeing how long it took you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I did plan it. I planned the route. And I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
I had an app on my phone and I plotted on the footpaths and then I was cross-referencing the book because I wanted to see which churches or places of interest I actually wanted to visit and spend some time in. And I think that what I hadn't realized is that every day I was going to write, probably took me an hour and a half at the end of the day, just to write. So that was part of my pilgrimage experience.
Oh, wow.
And so had I not done all that planning, I wouldn't have had that space to reflect and write on the day. So it was absolutely right to do it. But what was really interesting for me is that whilst I absolutely knew it was right for me to walk this route, I had no idea if I was going to complete it. And in fact, when I got to the second day, I got to this stone circle in Cornwall, and I had this most beautiful experience. The Mary energy current goes through this stone circle. And I had this really deep experience that everything was love. That's it, just like this really profound knowing. And I was like, oh, it's only day 2. I wonder if that was why I needed to do the pilgrimage. Maybe I'm finished tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm done.
maybe that was it. But as it was, I just every day I got up and I just carried on walking. But had I not been able to walk, or had the weather been awful, or had I had an injury, it was like I would have known when to stop walking. And for me, that's quite different, because usually when I set myself something to do, I just get on and do it. So I was in this space of not knowing, and really being guided by intuition and wisdom to kind of feel the right way to go. So yeah, that was really, it was really important for me to have myself be present to intuition. That for me felt like a really important part of the journey.
That's so cool. I've got a bunch of questions about that. It strikes me in this moment. It's funny. It's one way of understanding karma yoga is you can kind of have this deep awareness of almost like a desire of what you kind of where you're going and that kind of thing, but the outcome's not up to you. And the way that we often tend to mess ourselves up innocently as humans is to get obsessed with the outcome. And so I think anything where obviously we kind of know where we're going, we have a direction that we're heading in, but it's much more about the magic of the journey. And I kind of love that. So do you know what? I'm so fascinated. There's so many questions I've got about, the history of these ley lines and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like that might be either a conversation for us to have together or another day, because the thing I'm most interested in is what are some of the things that you came to know? Like you mentioned, you had that experience where you just came to know something, which it sounds to me like it's not even a question of trust. I think they're the things I find very interesting. It's not like trusting that everything is love. It's like, no, I know it's love. It's not even about trust. It's like a deep recognition. It's a knowing in me that that's the case. And they're the things that kind of liberate us as I see it, because the experience fades, but what we see and what we come to know to be true doesn't. And I think, people can chase experiences, but more important than that is what we come to know as being true in the middle of them. So I kind of love that. And I kind of would just like anything, Liz, that you were struck by, or anything that you stumbled across in your writing, or whatever it might be that you want to share. I know that I, for one, am very interested, and I'm sure many people listening will be as well. Yeah, what came up?
I mean, so much came up and not a lot came up. Because I recorded some little voice notes as I went, just to remind myself of different parts of the day. And I've been listening back to those voice notes over because I finished the pilgrimage in April, and I've been listening back to them sort of on and off. And there are days when I actually can't remember. I'm like, I know I did it because I'm speaking and I'm doing this thing, but I cannot remember it. So it's kind of interesting for me how much isn't remembered in a way. But that, I think, brings to mind some of the things that felt really clear, like really stand out. So I'm just going to tell you a couple that felt really pertinent to me, and
please.
This is kind of what you're kind of curious about. So one of the biggest things that came for me or occurred for me was this real deep knowing of slowing down. And it might seem a bit weird, because when you're walking, you can't really, there's no other transport as slow as walking. Like, you are as slow as you can go. And yet I noticed some of the habitual things that traps that I fall into in everyday life. But because it was just me walking all day and I didn't have my normal distractions, those habitual thought loops were much louder. Like, they were much more prevalent. And so I remember early on, I think it was day 3 or 4, I was kind of getting into the swing of walking, and I lapsed back into one of my, let me see if I can do a few extra miles today. Let me see if I can do this. And I stopped being so present to the landscape, and I became more present to how fast I was going and where I might get to. Now, on that particular occasion, I had to get to a certain endpoint, and it was in March, and the light was fading, and I was walking on these country lanes that are quite dangerous with cars that go fast, and I was getting more and more nervous. I was like thinking, this is actually quite dangerous. Like what I'm doing now is this isn't what I set out to do, and I started walking faster and faster and faster, and I could feel on my feet blisters starting to develop, and it was like so painful. But I had to walk really fast to get off these kind of quite dangerous country lanes. And I got to the end of the day, and we took a car as well, so we had the camper van and a car. And I got to my car, and I got into my car, and it was dark, and I was tired, and I was a bit kind of upset, and I thought, oh, this has been like I've been just racing along, and this doesn't feel like a pilgrimage. I'm 4 days in. I'm meant to be getting more settled, and I'm getting more agitated, and I'm not doing a pilgrimage right. And got into my car to drive back to the campsite, and I'm tired, and I'm hungry, and I feel sweaty and horrible, and all I want is a shower, and my car's got a puncture.
Thanks, universe.
Yeah. And it was like, oh no, like I just wanted to cry. But it's in those moments, it is almost like the universe goes, slow down, slow down. And it just kept coming back time and time again in different ways and guises, which when I started to lose myself again in that thought loop, things would happen. And I would go, oh, I've done it again. I've done it again. This is about slowing down. So that for me was really, really key. And I think for me, it's a beautiful metaphor because for me, it's about the slowing down of my mind as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And I can get lost in galloping along thinking, I need to do this and this and this today, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do that, and da-da-da-da. And I feel, and I don't fully understand the message because I feel that often these things are kind of drawing threads and below the surface of what I understand. But I deeply, deeply get there's something for me to see about not racing through life, about slowing down, about being present. And so that was one of the repeated learnings I had on the pilgrimage.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There's that beautiful book. I forget, it's Joe is the gentleman's first name. I forget his second name, but Living at the Speed of Life. And what a great title, you know. And I love what you said, Liz, because what strikes me is it's actually only possible to go faster than the speed of life in our mind, if you like. Obviously, life's unfolding, and in direct experience, this is what I imagine is so wonderful about an experience like your pilgrimage or the Camino or anything where it's a long, spending a month or that amount of time kind of walking and kind of getting into the rhythm of life, and especially on these, with the energy of these ley lines, these energy lines, is that we start to really notice that the only place where it's possible to really ramp things up and speed things up is in the mind. Our thinking goes up by 10%. We feel like we're 10% faster. It goes up by 50%. We feel like we're fit. It gets up to like 80 and 90%. And we feel like we're on the, oh God, it's overwhelmed territory. And it often just so often looks like it's coming from the world. And we just innocently miss that trick that it's coming from inside. Right. So, and I know you know that, but like for me and you both, and isn't it amazing how even in spite of having explored this in understanding, the inside out understanding for so long, that it's such a powerful and beautiful gift that we've been given, the power of thought, that we can so easily miss it. And opportunities like this wake us back up to just the magic of living at the speed of life. And to me, that's where all the good stuff is. That's where the intuitive nudges are. That's where the wisdom is. That's where, all the good stuff is, And maybe that's a bit unfair. It's not like there's nothing good to get from having a bit of time to hang out in your mind and reflect and have a think every now and again. Like I don't see it as there's nothing wrong with that. But noticing what you're talking about, that connection between how ramped up we are and the magic of just kind of slowing down and being here is profound. I think is really, really powerful.
Well, I love what you say there. And I think there is a propensity, particularly in the culture that we live in, that there's a sense that we need to do things quickly
Yeah,
to get to peace of mind. Like,
yeah,
I need to do my to-do list for the day and then I'll relax. Do
yeah,
you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I think, this is not about knocking thinking. I mean, I love it. Thinking is my favorite thing. Like,
yeah.
I love thinking about things, imagining things. It's a beautiful creative force that we have access to.
Sure.
And when it ramps itself up into that busyness, we can lose sight, or I can for sure lose sight of the richness of slowing down. And that experience I explained just earlier in that stone circle, where I felt that real profound sense of love in Cornwall. You see, I guess it looks like I went to a stone circle. There was the Mary current in the stone circle, and there was this magical thing that happened because of the Mary current. And I would go, no, I don't get that is actually what was happening. It was like I was just ultra present to what was already there.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of when our minds slow down. We kind of get that real felt experience of something that feels incredibly true. Like you said, you just know it in your bones.
Yeah.
So, and being human is this delightful mix of of thinking and imagining and doing and planning and all of that stuff, and having these moments where we absolutely know that we're profoundly, deeply okay. In fact, we are the energy of life itself taking form. It's like that's when life becomes really fun and we don't take ourselves too seriously. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's something about recognizing thinking and how it can sometimes just take over, and then then it can feel a little bit uncomfortable and not so enjoyable.
Yeah, it's nice to know as well. Many of the things that I used to think I'd relate to them as problems, those feelings of overwhelm, or we notice the blisters either literally or metaphorically on our feet, they actually can become wake up signals. They're the hey, it's that polite tap on the shoulder. And if you're really lucky, if you don't quite catch it, you'll get a flat tire or something.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
Okay, time for level 2. Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. That's beautiful. And I think ultimately, on the face of it, it's like it looks incredibly simple. But on the face of it, the stuff that makes the biggest difference to us, as I see it, is incredibly simple, actually. It's not the highfalutin, esoteric, shiny, complicated stuff that helps us out. It's knowing what we have going for us always that makes the difference. I feel it now in this moment. Just suddenly feel really connected, Liz. I mean, not that I didn't, but just suddenly to fall into a deeper feeling of connection. It's like, oh, wow, it's always here. It's always here. It's so cool.
Yeah, it is. And I remember one of my clients once said, it's a bit like setting sail in an unsinkable boat.
Nice. Yeah.
And you're going to hit bad weather and it's going to be frightening, but if you know your boat's unsinkable, then that gives you that sort of reassurance in life, which is, I feel, is very much what I'm exploring, is that reassurance at the level of spirit.
Yeah.
Well, that's who we are. So we are deeply okay, like more than deeply okay, but we're just extraordinary beings, like having this opportunity to be a human in the world, knowing that deeply we are okay and cannot be harmed at the level of spirit and soul.
Yeah. Ooh, so I love that. I think you suggested that there were at least a couple of things. Like, was there anything else that came to mind? So slowing down, like I'm really struck by that. That's very powerful. What else did you catch sight of?
Yeah, I suppose as well, this in the experience of intuition and being guided by wisdom, which is kind of, I think, the theme that was what I was experimenting or exploring or being present to on the walk. I noticed things that happened that just felt like it almost wasn't me doing them. Like, and so this kind of might sound a bit confusing, but I'll just give you an example, and hopefully it will make a bit of sense. So as I was walking, again, it's in Cornwall, and it was up to on Bodmin Moor, and again, there's a node point. This is where the Michael and Mary lines cross. They cross at a place called the Hurleys, which is quite a well-known spot on Bodmin Moor. And then the Michael line carries on across Bodmin Moor, and it passes through something called the Cheese Ring, which is a very distinct granite outcrop on the moor. And again, it had been a very hard, long day because climbing up to Bodmin Moor was pretty much all uphill. Mm-hmm. And my legs by that point were pretty tired. And I came to the Hurleys, and I went in the Hurleys, which is where the node point was. And it was one of those, it's nice to be here, but I'm not really feeling anything special. And then it was time to walk across Bodmin Moor to the end point. And as I was walking across the moor, I could see above me the Cheese Ring, which is the granite outcrop where the Michael line goes through. And I was like, I'm just too tired. I don't want to climb another hill. I just want to get home now. I just want to get back to the camper van. I want something to eat, blah, blah, blah. And I quite literally found my feet walking me up there.
Yeah.
And I remember leaning against this rock and just feeling this profound sense of peace again. And I didn't even quite know how I got there, because my mind had been kind of wanting me to go on. Finish the day quickly, get to the end of the day, have a rest. And I think there were times like that, many times like that, where intuition kicked in. When I went to Avebury, because the lines go through Avebury, and I did a walk around Avebury, and I was, so two things. One is there's a very distinct hill in Avebury called Silbury Hill, which is a man-made hill. And I was exploring being really present to the energy of these places. And so I could see people on the top of Silbury Hill. And I looked within myself to see whether it was right for me to go up to Silbury Hill. And it was a clear no. I was like, oh, okay. I won't go up Silbury Hill. I think the Mary line goes through that. And then I was strongly, strongly drawn to go to a spring that rises. It's not on the sort of touristy route. And I went to this spring that rises not far from West Kennet Longbarrow, which is where I had that experience before I'd even started the pilgrimage. And I went to the spring, and I don't think there's any energy currents that go through here. And I had one of those, I just wept. I felt so profoundly touched. And I sat down by this stream, which had stepping stones going across it. And there was a little wren that was bobbing along the other side of the bank, and it had a little drink. It just felt like it was a message or a messenger for me. And I went to the spring, where the water then comes down to the spring. And the feeling was, I can feel it now, just that real sense of connection, energy. I mean, it's hard to find language for it.
Ineffable, yeah.
Yeah. And I just knew that was a place I was meant to visit. Now, that's this real thing about, again, the power of thought and our planning mind is brilliant, and I love it. And yet I was being shown time and time again just to trust something else. And that something else was leading me. And in those moments, I was having really profoundly beautiful personal experiences that felt like they were, I don't know, this image comes to me, and it's a really weird image, but it feels a bit like a circuit board where somebody's soldering a circuit board. It felt like these little connections were being soldered into place. Sorry, some of these connections were being soldered into place in these particular places. So there was stuff going on beneath the surface of my awareness that I kind of knew was meant to be. And that's, yeah. So that was a few examples of being led by intuition and being guided by it and kind of following it.
It's beautiful. I love the image. I think the best, languages, it's funny because on the one hand, language is beautiful at pointing towards something and never quite enough, as wonderful as it can be. And it strikes me that, well, a couple of things strike me. One is I think if we're curious and we investigate our experience, we notice that these intentions arise, the body starts moving, and then the mind starts narrating. And it says, I did that. Like, I got up and went to the fridge for you. And actually, one of the things that we find if we truly investigate our experience is this, and this is borne out in the neurology. If you're scientifically minded, it's borne out in the kind of investigative traditions of non-duality and this strange experience of just, wow, like it's all just one energetic movement unfolding. And I I'm struck, Liz, by, for whatever reason, this appearance has energetic charges in certain places. So, this is a bottle in here, right here in front of me, or seemingly from my gross perceptions anyway. And, there's these ley lines and energy lines, but ultimately outside of the constructs and the conceptualizations that we have in the mind, it really is, in a very real sense, all just this wash of energy and it's alive. We relate to it as if it's fixed. And a lot of the work I love to do with people is really talking about what we mean by direct experience. And it seems to me that whenever we really have an experience that is direct, in the sense that the mind hasn't yet labeled, conceptualized, told a story, it's before even color, it's just at the level of, I'm going to have to use words because otherwise we'll just be sitting in silence, which would also be great. But it's just at the level of shape or sound and we all have this, and like sometimes the mind just kind of either leaves the building because it's dumbstruck by what's happening, or we have a moment where we might be investigating and finding a different way of relating to the present moment or whatever. And there's magic, like as I see it, that's always available. And I know I remember Sid Banks, I remember him saying once, but for our thinking, we would be in this kind of state of consciousness all the time. Now, I don't think Sid was saying, and therefore, if you're not in that state of consciousness, you should tell yourself off about that, and that thinking is wrong. I think he was pointing at something kind of mechanical in the sense of that is the ground of being. That's what's always happening. And then the power of thought is something that we're using to kind of experience and make our way through what's around us. And I'm just not surprised, but also quite impacted by how many times on this walk you were struck by something that knocked you out of, I think, the usual way of relating to the world, which is conceptual, and knocked you into that much more direct, energetic space where words, in fact, it's before words, and therefore words don't really work. It's kind of psychedelic in that sense. I love it. I can feel it. As you say, as you share it.
I think you described it so beautifully. It is before perceptions and experience. And even as I look within myself to find it again, for me it kind of is more like a feeling, a vibrational feeling, and then I find words to explain it. But one of the things, I love what you've just said, because I think this was part of what I deeply saw as well, is that we often, or let me just own it for myself, I live a life where I imagine that I am somehow the author of my life, and make it happen, and actually I'm not. Else is kind of creating, and then, like you say, I attach a story to it. And then I believe the story, and I get other people to believe the story. And yet there's something beyond that story, an energy before that, which I think I had the privilege of experiencing quite a lot, because there was so little in my day to distract me. And that kind of was my purpose over those 7 weeks of walking, was to keep bringing myself back to that space of presence.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I find it when I'm swimming as well. It's so funny because swimming is it's one of my probably my favorite form of exercise. I just love it. And I would describe very often we kind of enter, I guess, like a very present state, a state of meditation. And at the same time, it's a time where my mind can revert back to being like a teenager. All this ridiculous nonsense appears in my mind about, other people in the pool. And I'm clearly, it's just this ridiculous mind that's got all these silly judgments and all these things appearing. And so there's kind of this comedy value to it, which to me, I'm like, oh, mind, what are you up to? How funny. But in those moments where it's just, in the water and there's just this, in that moment, it's just whatever this is, whatever this kind of radiant moment is, it's just magical. And I just think that's what we're up to. For me anyway, Liz, that's what we're up to in our work, actually. It's like when you're talking about well-being listening, or we're actually just being. We're just with this, we're with life. And just, it's almost like seems too simple. The intellect goes, hang on a minute, that's not right. You need more, not less,
Totally.
But I just don't think that's true.
No. And I think what you said as well earlier, where you said this isn't about expecting that we need to live in this kind of glowy consciousness, present place all the time. That I think I thought that was what I was after. Like for many years, I was chasing that, and yet I think what's even better, which is what I'm seeing, is that we get to be human. We get to just do all the human stuff.
Yeah.
And we've got this as the ultimate safety net or the ultimate foundation, which is who we truly are. And yes, so for me, I guess what I really would love people to be curious about is that they can be human. They can have all the seeming sort of foibles of being human. And it's okay. So what? And then understanding that also what is ever present is always there. You can always look in that direction. It's a bit like a child that's just starting to get independent of a parent.
Yeah.
And anytime that child gets frightened, they can just turn around and just check the parent's still there. But they want to explore. It's that kind of tension, but safety at the same time.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I think it is a profound shift in how we play the game, if you like. Because if the rules look like you can play, but you need to be really careful about this. And if you do that, you might hurt yourself. And like we play with a different way to if we kind of know that. It's a paradox at the end of the day. It's like, of course, at the human level, we have things that matter to us. We have people that we love. We have, the whole smorgasbord of human experiences, and I don't think that's a mistake. And something really magical happens when we come to realize that the whole thing's safe. And I think that's in particular, I know the understanding that we're both so drawn to share that quote that people so often share of Sid's, which is, if the only thing that people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world, is so touching. And I've had so many people say to me, share those words with me again. I just want to feel what that's, because that to me looks like what we're actually looking for. I think for so many of us, we start off thinking that we're looking to get rid of a bunch of stuff from the human experience and only hang out over here. And then we get to this point where freedom and having your cake and being able to eat it actually doesn't look like how you thought it would. And there's like a maturing, and I don't mean that in a judgmental sense, because I know for me, like that was very much, and I see this a lot, people kind of striving to transcend their humanity or something. It's like, no, like this is about embracing our divinity. I once heard someone, I forget who it was, say, fully human, fully divine. That's what it is to me. Not one half and not the other half. I think we're missing out on half the picture. Mm. So I love what you're sharing, Liz. Like it's, and I love the metaphor of a pilgrimage, huh? Like, isn't that amazing? Just the things that you were struck by and just being able to reflect on it. I'm super excited to see what else comes up for you as well, because I'm sure that there are many more things for you to, insights for you to have, and and all that kind of stuff. And in a way, it's a great metaphor for life as well, right? To kind of this way that we're all walking through life and how we can kind of innocently speed up and all this kind of stuff.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so somehow, believe it or not, we've been talking for nigh on an hour, at least 45, 46, 47 minutes. So what I'd love to know is there anything else that you feel like you just have to share about that experience? And then also, you know, just anything you'd love to know, anyone listening, about what you're up to in the world and where to find you and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think there's just one thing I want to share, one further thing. It just popped into my head and it's popped in again, so I will share it. So as I was walking, I made it to Dorchester Abbey, which is near the Thames. And I remember leaving the Abbey and sitting down for lunch and just weeping, like weeping in sadness. Like I had this real sense of everything in the world that felt like I felt like I was helpless to everything that was going on in the world. As I was looking around me at the environment, seeing some of the destruction to the environment, and I feel very drawn to nature. I just felt really sad, really deeply, deeply sad. And I remember I was drinking a cup of tea out of a thermos flask and crying, and I just kind of being curious, like what am I meant to do? Like, what am I meant to do in this world? What can I do? Everything just seems so enormous. And, you know, I can't do anything. And I felt a very deep, it came to me as a kind of a voice. And it was very simple. It said, just walk. Just walk. And it was like all this scary stuff of the world fell away. And I thought, I can walk, I can do that. So I sort of packed up my rucksack and started walking. And for me, that's been really helpful because, again, I can get lost in the sadness of what I see on the news and hear with things that people are struggling with. Mm. And it can sometimes feel as though I need to be the hero superwoman that saves everybody. And actually, I think what I'm seeing more and more clearly is that whatever is mine to do is often the simplest of things. It might be, I mean, just simply in our little village, offering to take a neighbour's dog for a walk, or helping someone with their gardening, or going for a walk with a friend that just wants a bit of a listening ear. So that was another thing that really felt important to me, is that almost like when that wave, and it feels like a wave, washes over me, well, I just feel so helpless. It's like just stand up again and take the next step. You can do that. So I just wanted to share that as well.
No, I love it. I love it. And I think in a very real way that just do the wonderful, beautiful, ordinary thing is extraordinary. And I actually think that overnight, if everybody stopped trying to innocently play the I need to be special game or whatever, a lot of the things that we look out there and see in the world, they would suddenly transform. Because those games that people play, the I want to be, that's ego, right? And so this whole just being here and, you know, carrying someone shopping, or just the other day, like those small acts of kindness. I mean, man, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing how much of a difference they can make. And yeah.
Just as you say that, I just feel a shiver. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
me too.
That's it. It's so simple. Like, thank you for sharing what you just said. That was beautiful. Really beautiful.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming and sharing everything you have, Liz. Like, I feel really touched by it. And it's just really lovely to get to hang out and just get to know each other a bit better, and also have just a really beautiful conversation, of which this will be the first of many, I'm sure. God, I really don't want this to end, to be honest. I could just keep talking, but we'll have to set another one up. So in light of that, like, what would you love to share with people? Like, how can people find out what you're up to? I know you do lots of wonderful work with your husband, Stu. Like, what do you want to share? Whatever makes sense to you. I'd love for you to share.
Well, I feel as though for 2 years, I've been on an inward journey, a real spiritual, personal inward journey. And I feel as though I'm starting to come out of my little hibernation burrow and go, what's happening in the world and where next? So that's certainly where I'm at the moment. And one of the things that I am involved with, and I would love people to join me, is it's a platform called Insight Timer. And I'm a teacher on Insight Timer. And every day I go out for 5 minutes into nature, because I love nature. I love walking, as you know. And I just reflect on something that strikes me about what I'd like to share that day. So you can hop on the app. It's completely free for that particular part of what I engage with. And there are opportunities to connect with me on that. So that would be, awesome. I love people commenting or talking or telling me what they're up to on that. So that's certainly one thing. And then the other thing I would say is just watch this space, because funnily enough, we were working in community. We had a social enterprise. We wrapped it up last year. It felt like it had done the job that we were meant to do. And I don't exactly know what it was, but it felt like, that was it.
Yeah.
And then we've just found ourselves booking onto a retreat, which is with someone called Jack Pransky, the quote, of, all we are is peace, love, and wisdom, and the power to create the illusion that we're not. And he's running a retreat about community work. And I'm thinking, oh, universe, are you having a laugh? Like, I thought I'd done that bit. Maybe I haven't.
Yeah.
So that's certainly one thing I'm curious about moving forward. And the other thing, which you've just said it, and it's just struck me as really resonating for me, which is this sense of, I am so inspired to work with and be with a group of people that just do tiny acts of kindness and in the world, and to be part of that. So there might be something around that, creating a group of people where we just connect, and we hang out with each other, and we just share small acts of kindness and compassion, and we just kind of hang out with each other. So that's a maybe. I'm just kind of prompted by our conversation today.
Oh, well, it's amazing what can come from a conversation. It really is. So, I don't think I have anything else to say other than thank you. I look forward to the next time we get to hang out and have a conversation. And you just reminded me we're going to get to hang out quite soon, actually. We're going to get to hang out in Spain, because we're going to be there when you're there. So we can grab another great coffee and have a catch up in the person, which is always great fun. So
brilliant. I look forward to that, Sam. And Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed connecting with you today. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I can recommend your Insight Timer reflections. Like I've been listening to a few recently, and I think it's really beautiful. It's one of the things I love about this podcast is, amongst these beautiful longer form conversations, there's these kind of shorter reflections, as you know, and I think there's time for both. And sometimes just that 5 minutes of listening to something can really just bring an entirely different feeling tone to our day. So I love it. I think it's a beautiful way of communicating, and I just definitely recommend everyone checks out your work over there.
Thank you.
Awesome. Right. All right, team. We will see you very soon on another conversation, I think.